I'm planning on abandoning my family as soon as I turn 18, plus updates. So here's what's going on. I'm currently 17 years old, and pretty soon, like in 2 weeks, I'll be turning 18. The moment I hit 18, I'm planning to leave home. Yep, literally at midnight. As soon as I'm officially an adult, I'm out of there. The main reason? Well, my family life hasn't been great, especially the way my parents treat me compared to my younger brothers, who are 16 and 15 years old. Let me explain a bit about that. For some reason, my parents have always shown a clear preference for my brothers. It's like I'm living in a different world from them under the same roof. This favoritism has been going on for as long as I can remember, and it just doesn't feel right. You might wonder what exactly I mean by favoritism. Well, it starts with chores. I'm the one who ends up doing pretty much everything around the house. Whether it's cleaning up, taking out the trash, or doing the dishes, I'm the go-to guy. Meanwhile, my brothers hardly lift a finger. They get a lot more free time to hang out with friends, play video games, or just chill, while I'm stuck with a list of tasks. But it doesn't stop at chores. My dad has always pushed me hard when it comes to sports. I've been signed up for soccer, basketball, baseball, you name it, I've probably played it. My schedule is jam-packed all year round with no breaks. My dad says it's all about teaching me toughness and responsibility, about becoming a real man. But here's the thing, my brothers aren't signed up for all these activities. They get to choose what they want to do, and they definitely don't have their schedules filled to the brim like mine. I've tried talking to my parents about how unfair this feels, but it doesn't really change anything. They just don't see it the way I do. That's why I've decided that as soon as I turn 18, I'm going to start making my own choices and living life on my terms. I want to find a place where I can set my own rules, and maybe, for once, not have to worry about an endless list of chores or sports I'm not even sure I want to play. Now, about my brothers, the situation is pretty frustrating. They basically have a very relaxed life compared to mine. They spend most of their time playing video games, day and night, and they hardly ever go to school. I'd say they miss school about 30% of the time. Despite this, my parents treat them like they can do no wrong. They're really spoiled. Every birthday, Christmas, or any holiday, they end up with piles of gifts, accumulating thousands of dollars in stuff over the years. On the other hand, things have been really different for me. When I turned 12, my parents told me I wouldn't get any more gifts, just the bare essentials. Anything else I wanted, like a smartphone or anything extra, I had to pay for it myself. They were very strict about this. Don't ask for anything. Because of that rule, I couldn't even get a phone or anything nice for myself until I was 16, and that was only because I finally found a job that paid decently. Before that, I struggled to find any kind of job that paid well enough to afford things on my own. And there's more they expect from me. My parents have made it clear that they expect me to look after my younger brothers, even when I'm an adult. It feels like they see me more as a third parent or another caregiver rather than their son. This is just another reason why I feel pushed to the edge and why I'm planning to move out as soon as I can. I need a space where I can live on my terms, free from these unfair responsibilities and expectations. Adding to everything else, my younger brothers have made it clear they have no intentions of going to college or working at all. This was another big moment for me. Despite their lack of ambition, my father still managed to lay a heavy guilt trip on me, telling me, "We kept you alive. You owe it to us." That really hit me the wrong way. His words felt like a final straw. So I've made a decision that's pretty drastic but feels necessary. When I leave, I'm going to leave behind a letter that doesn't hold back on my feelings. I plan to change my phone number, my email addresses, basically anything that could be used to contact me. I'm cutting ties completely because I need to move forward without their constant negativity dragging me down. Honestly, I think my brothers are going to have a tough time in the future. They don't know how to handle real-world responsibilities. They've never had to. But I've reached a point where I see that as not my problem anymore. It's on my parents now. They chose to spoil them, and now they can handle the consequences. I'm even at a place mentally where I think if my parents end up struggling financially because they have to support my brother's lifestyle, that's a result of the choices they made. It might sound harsh, but I've run out of sympathy for them. After everything, I'm just ready to leave and not look back, regardless of what happens to them. Amidst all the unfair treatment and tough experiences at home, there's one silver lining. I've learned how to fend for myself. The rough times have actually prepared me well for independence. I'm ready to take on life on my own terms, and I've got some big plans they don't even know about. I've been accepted into a college in Virginia where I plan to study finance. I managed all of this quietly, without asking for their input or telling them anything about my applications. Physically, I'm also in great shape, thanks to the relentless sports schedule I was put on. Playing 6 sports a year has definitely had its benefits in terms of fitness. But the emotional and psychological toll of growing up like this isn't something that just goes away. The trauma from how they treated me and the way they stole my childhood from me, it's deep. It's something I'll carry with me. And because of that, forgiveness isn't something I can see happening. Ever. They've made their choices, and now I'm making mine. I'm moving on, focusing on my future, and they're not a part of it. They can deal with the consequences of their actions on their own. I'm starting fresh, with no strings attached. Now for the top advice before reading the updates. From the sounds of it, you will do fine if your dad moans. Tell him that you're doing what a man should do, making his own path in life. You don't owe them anything. Honestly, sounds like OP. He got the best out of a crappy situation. Also sounds like OP. He should do a DNA test. One suggestion I have for you, when you're out before you change your phone number, contact your local police non-emergency line and tell them you are not missing and that you chose to leave, that you don't want contact with your family. Make sure they understand you're not missing, even if your parents give them their names to try and report you missing. Hey, thanks for the advice. I was thinking about this last night after posting this. It's very strange that they treat you so different, but you have no explanation as to why. Other times, I have heard stories like this. It was because the child did not actually belong to one of the parents. Usually the father ever had a DNA test. I was going to say the same. Seems like the usual explanation for these scenarios when the difference in treatment between siblings is huge. I'm curious about whether obese mom is as harsh as the father. The really disgusting, what primitive animals people are. Now, I got the same treatment in my house after my dad remarried and had kids with my stepmom, and it was him doing it. Not her, until he kicked me out at 17. Then I stayed with my aunt and uncle. Exact same treatment there because I wasn't either of theirs. In fact, I got a speech my first day there. You're not one of our kids, and we're not going to pretend you are. So don't complain. That is not fair later because we're telling you right now it's not going to be verbatim. I'll never forget it. They seemed to go out of their way to humiliate me and make sure I was subordinate to their younger, very poorly behaved, spoiled, rotten kids. Went out somewhere once and left their 12-year-old son in charge of me. 17 at a time. Normal people hire a 17-year-old. They're not even related to be in charge of their children when they're away. But they had to make sure I and their kids knew how worthless I was. Amazing. Now for the first update, 2 weeks later. Hey, I've got some big news to share. I've officially moved out. The past couple of weeks have been super busy and kind of stressful, but let me break down everything I did to make my big move happen. First off, I decided to change my phone number. I called the company that provides my phone service and asked them to give me a new number. This way, my family can't just call me up whenever they want, which gives me a bit more privacy. Next, I needed a copy of my birth certificate because I couldn't find the original one at home, and I definitely couldn't just go asking my parents where it might be. So, I figured out where I could get a copy and went to pick it up. It's super important to have your birth certificate because it proves who you are when you need to do official stuff. I also took a look at my bank account. I wanted to make sure my money was safe and that my parents couldn't access it, so I checked to make sure the account was only in my name. Finally, I bought a plane ticket to Virginia. I'm going to be attending college in Fairfax, which is pretty close to where I landed at Dulles International Airport. So I'm all set up to start my college life there. So, yeah, that's pretty much everything I've been up to, just getting all set up for my new life in college away from home. It's a big step, but I'm really excited about it. So first things first, I made a late night call to one of my cousins, who I'm really close with. I asked him if he could pick me up around 12:30 in the morning. He's a pretty cool guy, and he totally got why I wanted to leave. He even told me he was proud of me for making a big move to better my life. It felt good to have his support. After I hung up, I waited until everyone at home was asleep. That's when I quietly packed up all my stuff. I didn't take a lot, just the essentials, because I needed to make a quick and quiet exit without waking anyone up. I also left a note for my family. I kept it really short and to the point. I just wrote that I was heading off to college in Alamo, California, and that I wasn't planning to come back. I figured a short note was best because I needed to say what was important without any fuss. When my cousin arrived, I was all ready to go. We didn't head straight to the airport or anything. First, we drove to the local police station. I thought it was important to let them know that I was okay and that I was leaving home on my own choice now that I'm 18. I showed them my ID to prove who I was. I told them I wasn't missing or anything like that. I was just starting a new chapter in my life on my own terms. So, that's how I set off on my new adventure, with everything done right and by the book, and with a bit of help from my awesome cousin. It was a big step, but I was ready for it. After you spoke with the police, making sure they understood your situation and that it was your choice to leave, You managed to grab a few hours of sleep at your cousin's place. That bit of rest must have been much needed before your early morning flight. Flying out of New Orleans International at 6 a.m. must have felt surreal, knowing you were starting a whole new chapter. Now, you're sitting in your college dorm, a whole 950 miles away from home. It's fantastic that you're feeling happier than ever. That's exactly how it should be when you're starting out on your own. College is a great time to meet new people and really enjoy your youth, just like you said. It's also super cool that your story got so much attention online and that you received a ton of support and advice from others. It's always a little surprising, but also really heartwarming to see how many people your experiences can touch. Thanks for sharing how things are going, and definitely keep everyone updated. I'm sure plenty of people are rooting for you and would love to hear how you're doing as you settle into college life. Enjoy every moment of this new adventure. Second update. Hey, so it looks like my last post really got a lot of attention, and a ton of people have been messaging me asking what's been going on since I moved out. Things have been pretty good for me, and I want to fill you all in on what's happened. First off, I've kept in touch with the cousin who picked me up when I left home, as well as a few other relatives from back home. It's nice to still have some family to talk to who understands why I had to leave. My cousin shared something pretty big with me the other day. He told me that the day after I left, my mom went over to my aunt's house. She was really upset and tried to tell my aunt a sad story about how shocked she was that I would just leave like that. My mom was crying and telling my aunt how she couldn't believe I'd just abandoned the family. But my aunt didn't just listen and nod. She actually stood up for me. She told my mom that maybe if she hadn't treated me so badly all these years, I wouldn't have had to leave. This made my mom even more upset, and they ended up having a huge argument right there in my aunt's house. It got so intense that my aunt ended up asking my mom to leave and kicked her out of the house. So it seems like me leaving home has really stirred things up more than I thought it would. It's caused a pretty big commotion, just like I figured it might. It's a lot to take in, but knowing that some of my family members see my side of things makes me feel a bit better about my decision. I'll keep you all posted on how things go from here. Thanks for all the support. It means a lot. Have been doing well, met plenty of new people, and made friends via classes and dorm neighbors. I'm in a better mental state that I've been in a very long time. I feel so relieved, and it just feels like a huge weight is lifted off my shoulders. It feels so good coming on here and reading all the support and positive comments I'm receiving. I'm really grateful for this community. I will continue posting updates in weeks to come. Thanks for everything, everyone. Now for the comments. I don't understand what the parents' endgame was here. Why the hell would they treat their oldest son like an adult from the age of 12 onward and make their other kids absolutely incapable of dealing with life? What was the point of that? I bet 20 bucks LP wasn't a planned child, or two parents have this firstborn child responsibility mindset, or he wasn't a father's child. Maybe mom only married dad after she had been knocked up by someone else. That's where my mind went. Also, a fair kid. Even if it's true that the four other person of the family are posse, I hope Opie is getting better and better. We kept you alive. They owe it to us. So they thought they could grow their own slave. I really hate how common this garbage is. Kept him alive. Were they planning to end him or let him die? WTF. Scary wording that I don't want to diagnose. She cried and gave my aunt this whole sob story about how she can't believe I would abandon them at my aunt told her. Maybe she shouldn't have treated me so wrongly throughout my whole life, which caused a huge fight and ended with my mom being thrown out of their house. Can we take a moment to appreciate the aunt saying, well, if it isn't consequences of your actions and get the hell out of my house with your lying, denying BS? Yeah, the aunt and cousin are also some real stars here. It's good that OP wasn't entirely alone in that family, even if its immediate one sucked. I'm choosing to believe his extended family was all waiting on his 18th birthday to start giving just desserts. Nothing OP sad sounds egregious enough that any kind of flow would care about it. Last story. Can my parents force a paternity test? A while ago, something really tough happened. My wife was attacked by someone, and she ended up pregnant because of this awful event. We're not sure if the attacker was from a different race. This situation was incredibly hard, but after a lot of thought and discussions, we decided together that we would keep the baby. I made a commitment right then to treat this child as my own, no matter what. We decided against getting a DNA test to find out who the biological father is. We made this choice because we thought knowing the truth might create a lot of pain and could potentially damage the strong bond between my wife and me. It felt like the right thing to do to protect our family's peace and privacy. However, I ended up making a pretty big mistake. After our daughter was born, I accidentally mentioned to my parents that there's a possibility the baby might not be mine biologically. I realized right away that this was a mistake and tried to correct what I said, but the damage was done. My parents kept asking more questions and wouldn't drop the issue. Eventually, my wife felt she had no choice but to sit down with them and explain the whole situation, hoping to clear the air. It was a very hard conversation because my parents didn't take it well. They didn't believe her explanation at all. Instead, they started to think that she had cheated on me and was now just taking advantage of me. This was really hurtful to hear because it's so far from the truth. Since then, things have gotten even more complicated. My parents are pushing really hard for me to get a DNA test. They think that finding out whether I'm the biological father will somehow settle things. They're even talking about leaving my wife if the results show I'm not the dad. But I don't want to take the test or leave my wife. I love her and our daughter, and I've promised to stand by them no matter what. Even more, my parents have threatened to take legal action to force a paternity test. They've made it clear they want me to walk away from my wife, regardless of what any test might say. This whole situation has put me in a very difficult position, but I know what my heart says. I've decided that if my parents can't accept my decision and continue to cause us pain, I might have to stop talking to them to protect my wife and daughter and preserve our family's happiness. This isn't what I want, but it feels necessary under the circumstances. But is there any way that they can legitimately force me to do a paternity test? Is there something I can do to prevent this or fight them? Now, for the top advice before reading the update, your parents have no standing or say in this matter and cannot compel you to do a paternity test. But they could take Islam from the child on the sly and test whether they're genetically related to him/her, which would have the same result for two wives' relationship with the child at the end. Yes, OP might not want them to have access to his kid and maybe block all contact with his parents. They cannot compel a paternity test. It's probably wise to deny them any access to your daughter. They might try to swab her and have a test done. They wouldn't necessarily need a sample from you. They could test to see if she was genetically related to themselves. They probably wouldn't be able to take any legal action with her results. But it still seems like something you would prefer to prevent added to the ad. You should be aware that if your daughter is not biologically related to you, she will likely discovered someday with lots of genetic testing opportunities now available is not as possible as it once was to keep genetic sanguina these skeletons in a closet. If she's a baby now, it will be many years before this is likely to be an issue, and it won't change your legal paternity. But as she approaches adulthood, you and your wife should decide if you'd rather discuss it with your daughter or risk her finding out another way. This is scary. We will keep this in mind. Nothing your parents want in this situation is relevant. In your shoes, if you're up for confrontation, I would be very tempted to sit down and explain that if they did not drop this, not only will they not have a relationship with their child, but they also will not have a relationship with you because you were not willing to tolerate this inappropriate intrusion in your personal life. People don't like having boundaries enforced on them, and this conversation will end badly. However, once your parents have cooled down, either they will accept your decision or they won't. If they don't, then follow through. Legally speaking, they have no standing. They'd have to be either of the purported fathers to do that, or to have some kind of legal rights, such as guardianship, to look out for the father's rights. As your parents, they don't have that. Even if you were a minor, this is largely your and your wife's call. If your parents somehow actually find a lawyer willing to entertain this or proceed pro se and file an actual paternity suit, have a lawyer handle your response. The lawyer's there, both for a professional insights and for emotional distance to provide in less invested perspective to help you decide how to proceed. And now for the update. Hey everyone. First off, I just want to take a quick minute to give a massive thank you to all of you who commented on my previous post. Your thoughts and advice really equipped me to handle what was coming next. And I can't express how grateful I am for your support. Shortly after I shared my story with you, something quite unexpected happened that really took me by surprise. A few days after my post, I received a very official-looking letter in the mail. It claimed to be from a lawyer, and the content was pretty shocking. The letter stated that my parents were demanding a paternity test for my daughter based on what they believed were their rights as grandparents. From all the helpful info you guys shared with me in your responses, I had a strong feeling that this kind of legal action was pretty unlikely to be taken seriously by any real lawyer. Feeling a bit suspicious, I decided to do some detective work. I hopped onto Google and typed in the name of the law firm and the lawyer mentioned in the letter. While the law firm itself definitely existed, I couldn't find anything about the lawyer's name anywhere. This raised a red flag for me, so I decided to get in touch with the law firm directly to see what was up. I gave them a call, and it turned out they had never heard of the lawyer mentioned in the letter. They were really concerned that someone was using their firm's name without permission, which is a big no-no. The law firm was not happy about this at all. They asked me to send them the fake letter so they could look into it further and possibly take legal action against whoever was pretending to be part of their firm. As of now, I haven't been in touch with my parents for a while, so I'm not entirely sure what's happening on their end with this whole mess. In other, much lighter news, I have a little update about my daughter that brought some unexpected relief. Recently, she was diagnosed with a very minor but somewhat rare skin condition. Interestingly, it's the same condition I have had since I was young. This new information has pretty much confirmed for me that she is very likely biologically mine. While we still don't plan on getting a paternity test done, learning about this similarity between us has really helped put my mind at ease. Thanks once again to everyone who took the time to share their thoughts and advice. It has truly made a difference in how we've navigated these choppy waters, and I'm thankful for this community's incredible support during this challenging time. Now, for the top advice. Something tells me the parents have other qualities that would justify now contact a tendency to commit fraud and pick their targets really poorly. I mean, lawyers. The ones and pissed off lawyers always left for them to do is to cut down someone else's tree. I'll bet that law firm uses burying his parents as a fun team building exercise. I'm imagining them all getting together in the lunchroom around noon for a recess. Okay, today's fun activity is demolishing a couple of cold-hearted, soon-to-be grandparents. Ex-grandparents. Sounds like he's divorcing them. I would bet my right kidney that if they had stayed in touch with his parents with visitations and such, that they would have gone and done it has to have the kid behind his back. What disgusting people. How Karma and his lawyers served them right. If they were smart enough, they wouldn't have said anything to Opie and would have done it without telling him. But hopefully they're not smart. They're even stupid enough to take a law firm's name to make a false letter.